Good evening and welcome to I'm Listening Live. We are here to let you know that we care, providing resources as always. We'll have some after the show for those that need a little extra care or support. And also to let you know that we want to destigmatize talking about mental health. It's one of the things we talk about consistently on the show is that by asking people, how's your mental health, it lets them know that you are someone who's a resource and that you care. I also want to call out Eddie Van Halen. We lost a legend. He passed from throat cancer. I wasn't aware that he was sick. I don't think many were, but we lost a legend, so we absolutely want to hold some space for that. I know it's been a hard year. We've had a lot of losses. We're doing a lot of mourning, and this is just more tacked on to that. But again, feel your feelings, and that's, as always, is the definition of mental health. The ability to feel all your feelings, drop into them deeply. So it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, whatever's going on right now. But one of the ways that we really push through that is by taking whatever action is possible. And many are feeling a lot of anxiety and stress due to the upcoming election. So, of course, I want to remind everyone to register to vote and then, of course, to vote. So reach out to friends and family members. Send them that link. Just text it to them. It's so easy. Make sure you check to make sure you're registered because I found out I wasn't. So register. You can get your ballot mailed in or grab a group of friends, pack up your lunch, grab a mask, and go wait in line. It's important. We got to make sure we do that. Now we're going to go to our first guest, Tracy Clayton, writer and podcaster. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. And before we jump into anything, I'm always happy to celebrate people's successes. So I wanted to just call out two of the awards you got. I love this. The Roots, Root 100. And I love this one even more. Ebony's Power 100 Disruptor. Now, at a time like this, we need people like you disrupting the system.
Thanks. I try to do my best to be a thorn in everyone's side, and sometimes it's for the better.
I know that well, that strategy. How is your mental health right now through everything that's going on? And that's a lot. There's a lot happening right now.
There's quite a lot happening right now. Honestly, it's all right, but it's definitely a day-to-day thing. In addition to going through the same pandemic that everyone else is and the same race war and all that, I ended up making 3 podcasts at once, wow, which is not ideal. It's not the best way to work or to be a podcaster. But I mean, it was a situation where nothing was in my control, some company decisions, and then COVID happened. And then I just ended up with 3 podcasts on my plate at once. And that has been a lesson in setting boundaries and occasionally putting myself first and realizing that I can say no to things if I'm too busy. And those are good things. Those are good signs. So I am learning from the tough times when I have them. But right now, I'm all right. I'm all right.
Beautiful. And I love what you just pointed out, because when I talk to my patients or others about mental health, it's kind of what you just pointed out. Self-care is often saying no, setting boundaries. And in one of the interviews I read about you, you called out that you realized there was a time when you needed to step away and kind of rest and heal.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a couple of times. I think the most recent time was several weeks ago. Time is tough to track these days, but with 3 podcasts on my plate, I just ran out of gas a little while ago, and it was a situation where I had to realize, you can't give away what you don't have. You can't pour from an empty cup, and my cup was completely empty. And thankfully, I work with a team and I work with people who were understanding of that, and I had to accept that it might cause some complications, but I mean, if it causes complications, we can work through them once my glass is full again.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's centering mental health, right? Because in our culture, I think we over idealize and prioritize productivity and work, yes, and grind culture. And so it's unfortunately a necessary but very radical act to say no and take a break.
Absolutely. And depending on who you are and where you were raised and how you were socialized, it's really hard to unlearn. I'm from Kentucky. I'm from the South. Also, I just really like being polite. I'm a people pleaser, and I don't like to say no to people. And reinforcing that is this idea that, you shouldn't say no to people as a woman. You shouldn't say no and complicate other people's lives as a Southern woman. Right. So there's a lot of muck and mire and scar tissue that I had to sort of reckon with and just deal with as I'm learning how to take care of myself better. And it's tough, but it's absolutely worth it. If I hadn't taken that week off, I I have no idea what would have happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My work would have suffered, and it would have been a lot. It's tough.
So I was looking at the New York Times, and I thought, you're doing a lot very successfully. The bar's a little high. I mean, one of the comments was New York Times said that you are using pop culture as a bomb in trying times. I thought that's quite an understatement, because there's a lot more going on than trying times. And that's a big request for you in pop culture. How do you think we're able to use pop culture to kind of get us through what's happening?
So for me, it's been a really big help to look back at where we've been, to remind me that history does repeat itself, for better or for worse. And that's helpful because when I think about the tough times that we're having right now, like we've had really, really tough times before. And often those tough times are sort of dealt with and processed via pop culture, I think. So being able to look back and say, this sort of reminds me of like what I saw when I was younger happening in the 60s. And I'm sure that people then felt like they were going to die the way that I kind of do all the time. Like it really feels like the world is ending, but it kind of always feels like the world is ending, So it helps to give some perspective. And also it transports me personally to a time when I was young. I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't have a job or rent, and it just feels good. And I think the experience of feeling good and just being joyful, especially for Black people, is something that we're missing, because it's a thing that you need, just like you need food, like it changes your brain. It helps to refuel you. It gives you hope and a reason to keep going. So those are the two main things that pop culture does for me.
Yeah, and it can also be such a really interesting and powerful political tool if an artist like yourself chooses to use it. One of the things I saw that you put out on, I think it might have been your Instagram, maybe your Twitter, but you were talking about remembering to be kind to your body, because our body is what kind of carries us through this difficult time. And I really loved that, because I think we tend to very much shame bodies, and we try to make people feel like they need to look a certain way. And this was such a beautiful reframing of that.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's interesting because just yesterday I tweeted that when I see another woman with my exact body type, I'm just like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. She's so perfect. And then I look at my own mirror and I'm just like, you should have worked out today, So even as I know better, I'm still just kind of doing the best that I can, which is helpful for me. That's when like Twitter and social media and Instagram really are helpful, because it shows me that I'm not the only one struggling with this stuff. It shows me that you can know better, but still keep repeating the same lies to yourself. And like, you really have to like work hard to push through that and to unlearn it. But when you know that you're not alone, it makes it easier. And also, again, it's about perspective. Like, of course, you're going to gain weight during a quarantine when you can't go anywhere. You don't have to, but if it happens, it makes sense, And also, everybody's like inside quarantine, gaining weight and not happy with what's going on. And it just really helps to remind yourself of what you are in the middle of right now. Like if you add during a pandemic, at the end of like your appraisals of yourself, I think that it really helps. So if I'm like, I'm not doing great, that can open up the door for me to be very unkind to myself, like, I'm just failing left and right. But if I say I'm not doing great during a pandemic, it's just like, oh, sure, of course, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Give yourself a break. Jeez.
Yeah.
But I appreciate people like yourself being so transparent and vulnerable on social media, because people expect, again, people like yourself to be just nailing it. You're successful. You have outlets. Like, you're funny. You're doing well. And so I think for others, it really normalizes their struggle when they see people like yourself saying, yeah, I'm a human. I'm in it too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Beyonce just as much as everyone else does.
As you said, you are the Beyonce of mood disorders.
I am. I believe you should be the Beyonce of whatever you are, whatever your thing is. But my favorite moments watching Beyonce are like candid moments when she's like in the process of learning something, or when she like misses a step as she's practicing, because you really, really do forget that the people that we see every day and the people who are being marketed to us in a way that makes us want to be them, we forget that they're people too, and that they mess up on occasion, and like they get sad, they get depressed, like we don't get to see that from the people that we admire. And I think it's really important. So, and it also like makes me feel better about all the balls that I drop when I drop them. Because if I can share that with other people and if that can help inspire a good change or a good feeling in someone else's life, then I feel like at least there's a reason for my suffering slash bumbling slash depression slash whatever else is going on. And that again helps me to be a little kinder to my mood disorder, which is an odd concept, but it's also helpful.
Beautifully said. Tracy Clayton, thank you for your strength and for your honesty. And of course, strong Black legends. And we all know another round. Thank you so much for being a part of our show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was so fun.
Have a beautiful night. Be well.
You as well.
And it's really important. You know, I want people to just be vulnerable and let themselves be where they are. And as Tracy talked about, we're all in it together and we're all human, no matter how successful you might think someone is or how they traditionally thrive. We're all doing our best. And so, you know, give yourself a break. As she pointed out, talk as kindly to yourself as you might to other people. And when you feel like you need to take a little bit of rest, take that rest. All right. We've got Dr. Jen Wider with us. Dr. Jen, welcome back. How are you?
Great to see you, Dr. Chris. Thank you. I'm good.
So I want to start off with a very loaded, punchy question. So many people are saying either our president is possibly lying about having been infected or lying about his current state of wellness. Weigh in, please.
I'm in the latter camp. I think that he is infected. I think that he is not being truthful with the American public, which is a pattern basically for this administration, unfortunately. And you know, the problem is, Dr. Chris, this disease has been politicized from the beginning. I don't think he's being truthful. And I think the fact that he put, you know, Secret Service members at risk to wave to people like a scene out of Evita is just absolutely mind-blowing to me. Just absolutely crazy. And he should not be back in the White House. He's definitely still contagious. People at the Rose Garden party are infected. And so it would be a large ruse, I would imagine, with a lot of people involved if he weren't indeed infected. So my guess is the latter, and an irresponsible response.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. I was watching the latest footage of him and I thought, oh, please go lay down. You are not well. Stop. Yeah.
And also, you know, just the types of treatment that he's receiving, you know, with the steroids and the plasma convalescent therapy, he's not doing as well as his wife, who was not hospitalized. So unfortunately, it seems like what's trickling out, and they're not being transparent with the American public like they were with every other presidency in the history of this country. He is being treated aggressively. And so I really believe he should not be back in the White House.
Okay. Needed to get your opinion on that one. And then let's talk about the fall and what we're looking at, you know, what's approaching, and then also your thoughts on the possibility of a vaccine in 2020.
Right. So, I think the fall is shaping up to be sort of predictive of what a lot of the experts said, certainly what's coming out of the mouths of a lot of people in the public health field. You know, a lot of people in the medical community thought that we would see a fall that saw some uptick in certain areas. Certainly when you saw some colleges reopening, when the schools are reopening, some industries are reopening, we're definitely seeing upticks in areas. But it's not exactly the same as we saw back in March and April, where everything was mandatorily shut down. We're seeing sort of brush fires, and they're being able to be controlled through contact tracing. But I do wish, just looking at this from a public health standpoint, that we could have a little bit more testing, widespread testing in a lot of different areas. In our schools, Chris, my kids are back in a hybrid measure, both at a middle school and at an elementary school. And the teachers were not tested before the school year started. And I think that would have alleviated some of the issues that have, predictably arisen since school started. And you've seen some closures in area schools in my area. And certainly we're starting to see that in different boroughs in New York City on this east coast of the country, in addition to other places across the country. So, moving forward, cautiously optimistic, I would say.
Okay. And as far as a vaccine in 2020, what are your thoughts on that happening?
A story just came out this morning about how the FDA wants to be very cautious approaching this, that they wouldn't release a vaccine before they knew widespread consumption would be safe. And the White House, unfortunately, is starting to push back on that, wanting the vaccine to be released before November 3rd, the time of the election. I again think that's most likely irresponsible. I think it's unlikely we're going to see a vaccine for widespread consumption in this country for the American public before the start of the new year. And even if that, people I've spoken to that are more experts in this area don't think it's going to be released before March 2021.
Oh, man. So we got to hang in there well into next year.
I think so. And I don't know if the vaccine is going to be the panacea either, Chris. I think we're going to see more ways to control this, more widespread testing, and hopefully some preventative treatment. Certainly, one of the challenges is going to be compliance with a vaccine. How much percentage of this country is going to want to be vaccinated?
Oh,
right
I
now,
can't. Oh, that's going to be a whole thing. I mean, I'm holding my breath to see the public response to a vaccine. Yeah.
polls are now at 40% of people would be willing to get it if it came out in December. So you're looking at 60% that would not.
Wow.
So
I thought it would have been in reverse. The
yep.
stats. Wow. Okay.
Right.
And then as far as there's a new buzzword going around. I love new words. Have you heard the twindemic term yet? Yes. Okay.
Epidemics, yeah. Put on a t-shirt. So
yeah, tell us about that.
Right. So twindemics really is just this catchphrase, as Chris mentioned, about potentially moving towards the flu season where we see a lot of widespread flu activity in this country, and also COVID-19 at the same time. The worry, of course, would be that the activity of different types of viruses could overwhelm our hospitals, and a lot of public health industries in the United States and England and across different areas in Europe are pushing for the flu vaccine. But Chris, if any country is predictive of what could potentially happen here, it's Australia. Australia had a very mild flu season, by the way, because of social distancing, because of widespread masking, and hopefully the United States will follow suit because of some of these, preventative measures we have in place. We will have a mild flu season, fingers crossed. But obviously the catchphrase here, to avoid the twindemic, you want to go get a flu vaccine. And there's no lack of flu vaccine in this country at this time. It's widespread available for kids and for adults. Very important to go get a flu vaccine so you don't, that you can troubleshoot what you have if unfortunately you get infected with one of these viruses.
All right. Yeah, the flu vaccine. I'm going to be getting one this week. Dr. Jen Weider, thank you so much as always.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Have a beautiful night.
You too.
So, y'all, we're not out of the woods yet. My friendly reminder that we're still in a pandemic, and in some areas the numbers are still spiking. So we still have to make sure we're social distancing, wearing our mask, washing our hands, and of course, always looking at not just the impact the infection might have on you, but also those that you come in contact with, right? We're having more of a collective responsibility, hopefully, and empathizing with the impact we have on others, especially those that are high risk. For those that need some extra support, we're going to put up some resources at the end of the show. We'll be back next week, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. That's on all the radio.com handles. You can go back and check out past episodes as well on the radio.com Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. As always, y'all, thanks for hanging out with me, and you have a beautiful, beautiful night.